Hello everyone and welcome. In this video, I'll be showing you how to create a VPC, that is a virtual private cloud, using the AWS Management Console, which is a web-based interface. It is also possible to create a VPC using the AWS command line interface, but for the purpose of this video, I'll be using the AWS Management Console. Now, you can click on the search bar and simply type VPC, or you can come here and click and go through a list of services. You'll find VPC under networking and content delivery. Once you have gone through the VPC, once you have gone to the VPC service before, it will appear under recently visited, as I have here. I have a couple of services I've visited recently and they are all appearing here. But you can easily type out VPC and it will come up on search results. Now I'll click on VPC and it will take me to the VPC page where I'm going to create a VPC. Now, what is a VPC? A VPC is a it's an isolated part of the cloud where you can create your resources. So your EC2 instances, your RDS databases, you can create and arrange your network connections as well. You can create subnets. You can add your route tables. You can even secure your VPC using security groups or network access control lists. You have a list of services under the VPC here, a list of features that you can use. I'm going to come over to my VPC. I already have There is a default VPC created for me by AWS already. A VPC can be created in a region. So this is the US East 1 region. Um, I can decide to switch to Ohio. I can decide to switch to North California, Oregon, or in all different continents. I can decide to choose wherever I want, whatever region I want to choose my VPC. So I'm going to click on create VPC, and it's going to bring me to this page. Now you can decide to create just the VPC, meaning you have options. You have the option of customizing your subnet and every other VPC component by yourself, or you can decide for AWS to create all this for you automatically. If you do this, your you have multiple subnets, both public and private. You have the option of creating them in multiple availability zones. But for the purpose of this video, I'm going to choose VPC only because I want to show you how to create all these components from scratch. If you decide to do this, it will take just maybe 2 minutes to create the whole VPC for you. Now I'm going to click on VPC only. I'm going to come here and name my VPC demo VPC. I'm going to leave every other thing as is. I have to put in my APV CIDR block. I'm going to choose 10.0.0.0/16, and this is going to be my SATA for my whole VPC. And I'm going to come to create VPC. Now my VPC has been created. Um, Note that you have to come to actions, click on edit VPC, and come here and click on enable DNS hostnames. This is so that AWS will be able to create a DNS hostname for you, which is something you can use to access your resources on the web interface if you do not want to use your IP address. If you want a more meaningful DNS hostname, like something you can remember, www. You can use the Route 53 service, which AWS also provides to do that. If AWS is going to create for you, that would come as part of the package as well. Now we are going to have to create subnets. Subnets are sub ranges of IP addresses in your VPC. It is important to note that you can have both public subnet and private subnet. Now, what are the differences in public and private? Simply put, a public subnet has access to the internet, and the internet has access to the public subnet. The private subnet is the opposite of that. There are no interactions with the internet from the private subnet. So let's say, for example, a you have a compute, you have a database, you can put your EC2 instances in your public subnet. You want them to interact with the internet and you want the internet to interact with them. But your database is something sensitive. You don't want just anybody to have access to that. So you can keep that in your private subnet. Most of the times you have more resources in your private subnet than in your public subnet. So it is worthy to note as well that your IP range should be more for your private subnet than your public subnet. Now, just naming a subnet public doesn't make it public as well. We're going to see that shortly. I'm going to click on create subnet. I'm going to choose my VPC where I want my subnet to be put. I'm going to name this public subnet. I'm going to come here and choose my availabilities, and I'll choose the first one, US is to 1E. And I'm going to have to choose a subnet CIDR block. So we are going to choose 10.0.0.0 slash, let's say 24. This is going to give me 256 IP addresses. It is also important to note that AWS reserves 5 IP addresses from this. So at the end of the day, I'm going to have 251 IP addresses. I'm going to click on create subnets. And here we have it. I've created my subnet. You can click on public subnet to have more information about your subnet. As of yet, this is just an ordinary, it might as well be a private subnet because it is not linked to there is no internet access to it. So how this is going to become a public subnet is by attaching an internet gateway to this and then adjusting our route tables, or if we do not have one, we are going to create one because every subnet must be associated with a route table. So we are going to come to internet gateway and create an internet gateway. Already we have an internet gateway that was created for our default VPC. I'm going to call this demo internet, sorry, gateway. And I'm going to click on create. I'm going to click on actions and I'm going to attach this to our demo VPC. Now we have our internet gateway in our VPC, but still our subnet is not public. We are going to have to create a route table. Now this is a route table that we have for our demo VPC. We are going to create ours. I'm going to click on create route table and I'm going to call this public route table. Sorry. I'm going to select our demo VPC which we created and I'm going to create. Now we have to edit routes. We have to add a route. Our destination is the CIDR range for the internet, which is 0.0, and our target is our internet gateway, which we created. You can see a demo internet gateway, and then we are going to save these changes. After doing that, we are going to associate our route table with our public subnet work. So we're going to come here and click on subnet associations. We'll click on edit subnet associations and we are going to click on public subnet. And here we have it. Our subnet is now public. So right now we have a public subnet in our VPC. We are going to have to create a private subnet as well. Pretty simple. We are going to set our private subnet in the same VPC. We're going to call this private subnet, and we're going to put it in the same availability zone. Now, note that we mentioned our private subnet will usually hold more of our resources, so we are going to have to make this bigger than our public subnet. So you can see this has 512 IP addresses, which is more than the 256 we initially got. So we have our private subnet here. Something extra to note is that sometimes our databases will need, or most times actually, will need updates. So that is a form of interaction with the internet as well, isn't it? But we spoke about how we do not want the internet to access our resources because we want them to remain private. If we have sensitive resources, we do not want just anybody to gain access to them. That is where the NAT gateway comes in. But I'm not going to treat this in this video. What you do is you associate the NAT gateway in your VPC similar to how we did with the internet gateway, and you set your route tables so that internet will be able to use the NAT gateway as a target. We mentioned securing our VPCs using security groups and network access control list. I'm going to set a security group. I'm going to create a security group. Now let's call this app security group. And what our security group is going to do is to allow HTTP traffic from the internet. We're going to select our VPC, demo VPC, and we're going to add our role. Now we want to allow HTTP traffic. Our source, once again, is the internet. We want to allow HTTP traffic only from the internet. We're going to come here and click on create security group. Now that our security group has been created, if you have extra traffic routes you want to add, you can click on edit inbound rows, you can edit outbound rows and all that. But we have created our security group, and that is it. We have secured our VPC. So we're going to test our VPC. We're going to create a resource. We're going to come here and click on EC2. We're going to create we're going to create an EC2 instances, and we're going to load up a user data that is going to boot when our EC2 is created, so we can get a simple HTML page, and you see that we are connected to the internet. So I'm going to click on launch instance. Let's call this Apache Web Server. We're going to leave most of this as is. We're going to leave most of this as is. We're going to click on this for our key pair, and we are going to edit our network settings. Now we are going to choose our demo VPC because we want our instance to be created in our VPC and in our public subnet. So we are going to have to choose the public subnet. You click on enable or to assign public IP. And we are going to select existing security group because we have our security group that we created, which is to allow HTTP traffic from the internet. Now I have the user data that I'm going to load up here. I'll attach this user data in the description below for those of you who want. It's going to load up a simple HTML page. Now, our instance has been created. It's going to take some minutes to pass through some checks and for it to be able to come online. We're going to see that shortly. So there it is, our instance state says running, but we have our status check still on initializing. So we're going to wait for a 2/2 check, status check to be complete, and then we are ready to go. From here, you can see our public IPv4 DNS, which was auto created for us. Remember, when we're creating our VPC, we clicked on the enable auto assign public IPv4 DNS, and this is what was auto assigned for us, and this is what we are going to be able to use to open up instance page. You can also use your public IPv4 address to do that. Now our instance is still initializing. This is going to take a while. I'm going to pause this video and come back when it is done loading. Now our instance has passed the status check. I'm going to copy. I'm going to and this is our instance, which says this is Emmanuel's instance that is successfully running the Apache web server. And with this, you can see that our public subnet is actually public and working very well. Thank you for joining me in this video. I'll catch you in the next one.